afternoon. Oh, we could do better than that. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Oh, okay. All right. All right. Welcome to the Big Smoke Meets WhiskyFest. We've got a busy day of cigar smoking and drinking whiskey ahead of us. I hope you're ready, and I'm ready too. Yeah. First of all, I send regards from Marvin Shanken, our editor and publisher of Cigar Aficionado and Whiskey Advocate magazines. Marvin can't be here, but he says hello. This event, after all, was his idea. He said, look, we've got big smokes, we've got Whiskey Fest. Let's put these two things together so our audience can enjoy the very best of cigars and whiskey. We're going to get started with our first panel, and our first panel is a real doozy. Gordon Mott is going to be joining me up here to co-moderate. And please, I know they're all in the back of the room. I'd like to have them come up. All Hall of Famers from Cigar Aficionado. We have, please join me, Ernesto Perez Carrillo, Carlos Fuente Jr., George Padron, Lito Gomez, Rocky Patel. Come on up, gentlemen. So we brought out the A-team for this one. This is, if you want to know about cigars and you talk about a history of cigar making talent, these are the guys right here. I mentioned very briefly that they're all members of the Cigar Aficionado Hall of Fame. That's our highest accolade. I'd be up here all day if I said all of their achievements, but I was going to say really quickly. Ernesto Perez Carrillo, Hall of Fame class of 2012. He's been making cigars for more than 50 years. Originally La Gloria Cubana, now under his own name, E.P. Carrillo. Carlos Fuente Jr., Hall of Fame class of 2012 as well, maker of Arturo Fuente, Fuente Opus X cigars, literally born into the cigar business. George Padron is sitting just to my left, the man behind the Padron brand, who's been a part of the family business really his entire adult life. Lito Gomez from the class of 2016, who's been making cigars since 1994, the man in the hat behind the La Flor Dominicana brand, and Rocky Patel from the class of 2016. Rocky's been in the business since 1995. He has done so much and grown so fast. Let's have a big hand, first of all, for all these incredible panelists. Gordon, you were doing some math before this. You made an estimate as to how much experience we have on stage with these gentlemen.
Well, it easily exceeds 200 years. I mean, 3 of these guys have grown up in the cigar business. These are the icons of the cigar business. Holy shit.
Oh, my God. Ladies and gentlemen, Marvin Shanken. Hey. Hey. I can't believe this.
It's been too long, but it feels like a day didn't pass by. Just great to see the man himself in person.
He hugged me yesterday, so don't think he's dissing me. That.
And you guys had this so quiet.
First of all, hi everybody. I haven't been to Big Smoke in, 10 years? Maybe longer. All these guys called me and said, are you coming? And I said, no. David Savona didn't know I was coming. I played golf with Gordon yesterday, and yesterday I told him, but I made him swear on his life he wouldn't say anything. This is, what? There's a 4-club wind, and I didn't play very well, but I took $50 from Gordon Mott.
Trust me, that was painful.
So I decided to come, I think more than anything else, to surprise these guys. We grew up in the business together, and we all have great stories. And I thought whatever the subject is, it may change if that's okay with you, David.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
So in 1981, which is 31 years ago, I went to the Padron factory in Miami, and nobody would talk to me because nobody spoke English. And George, I think, was still in the grammar school. Ernesto was in his store a few blocks away, I think, and he had 4 female cigar rollers who were in their 90s. And since he had no office, he took me across the street and bought me a cup of very strong espresso. It was a Cuban coffee. I died. I had to go to the hospital after he served it to me. Guido and Rocky came later, and boy, have they done incredible things for the cigar world. I'm so proud of these guys. Thank you. Carlito is a different story. In 1981, and he will probably interrupt me and corroborate it, but I flew to Dominican Republic and had dinner with him and his dad, Carlos, at Camp David is what it's called. And it was before I started the magazine, and I was looking to see if I can get any cigar companies to advertise. They didn't have any money, and they were all dying. And his father said to me, Marvin, after I presented the idea of a cigar magazine, which everybody thought, was a stupid idea, and Carlos said, as long as you own the magazine, I will be in every single issue. And then I left. And as the story goes, you want to tell it?
Yes, how could I not remember? I was younger when my father, and I was looking at a magazine that Marvin and Gordon brought down, which was Wine Spectator. It had a beautiful image of Avelino Lara, smelling the tobacco and everything. And, of course, I looked through the magazine and everything. My father was more in a conversation about life with Gordon and Marvin and so forth. But in the magazine, there was a price chart. It was prices for advertising. So when we departed on the way down from Camp David, it's up in the mountains on these winding roads very slowly. I said, Dad, you know what you told him? He said, what, Carlito? I said, you said as long as he has a magazine, as long as he owns it, you'll be in every issue. We can't afford it. He said, don't worry about that. They won't last more than one issue. True story, so help me God. They're not going to last. Don't even worry about that.
So Gordon worked for me. And he was working on another magazine. And in 1981, I walked down the hall. What? 91. Oh, not what I say. Oh, I mean 91. Forgive me. This is what happens when you get old. Did I say 81 before, or did I say 9? Or I didn't get. All right. So correct the record. 91. And he had written an article on cigars and brandy as a freelancer a few years before for the New York Times, and I don't know what, he's at Market Watch. Were you the managing editor there or so?
I was, yes.
And I stuck my head in and I said, how do you feel about working for a cigar magazine? And what was your reaction?
I went home that night and told my wife, and I said, Marvin was having a really bad day today.
And we were together for how many years?
It was 32 before I was 22, 23.
Is that all?
Yeah, I left the chair in 2014, but it's like that Hotel California line. You can never leave. So here I am. It's 8 years after moving to Mexico.
So Gordon had a young guy working for him who, I don't know what his title was, but in the beginning, I wanted to fire the guy. I said to Gordon, fucking guy can't write. True story, Gordon?
True story. Exact words is, I think, what you said.
And so he refused to fire him and said, we'll sign him up for writing classes. Right, Gordon?
Yep.
And
I think we paid for it, too, which was really, generous.
Yeah. So young David, who was a trainee, improved. It hurts me to have to say that he's become a truly, truly great writer. And a number of the recent covers he's actually done. And the one that's coming up right now is the most controversial because he's been hocking me for 2 years that he wanted to do a cover on an idol of his that I had no fucking interest in having in the magazine. Who is this guy?
James Hetfield from Metallica.
So after 2 years of badgering, and never before letting either Gordon or David pick the covers, I threw David a bone. So I'm reading the manuscript. I live in Palm Beach Gardens. I'm outside smoking a cigar, reading the manuscript, and I figure, what the hell? I'm going to turn on Spotify. I'm going to listen to this guy's music while I read the article because I'm going to give David a chance. The music is fucking disgusting. I've never heard such horrible noise that's called music. And then I'm reading the article, and the guy sold 120 million albums. 120 million albums. He's appeared before billions and billions of people. Are all you people crazy? Raise your hand if you've ever heard of this guy.
Oh, my God. Thank you.
Oi. I guess that says a lot about me. Have any of you ever heard of him?
Yeah. Heard of him, yes.
All right. Anybody follow Metallica? I guess it's for a different generation. So let's start with Rocky. Real quick, what got you into the cigar business?
I mean, I started it really as a hobby. I was an investor with a gentleman by the name of Phil Zangi, who approached me at the Grand Havana Room. And, I just started smoking cigars, and we were working on a lot of stuff in the entertainment industry, and people were waiting for lighting, music, sound for 3 hours, and started smoking cigars. So he had a brand called Indian Tobacco, and he had a license from Indian Tobacco Motorcycle Company, and he needed an investor, and that's really how I started. And pretty soon kept writing check after check and not seeing much coming in, and over time kind of took over the company, and everyone said, you'll never make it. This is a business typically that's handed down through generations. You just don't get in the cigar business. It's an art and a culture that's learned over time, and that when somebody tells me I can't do something, that got my antlers up. And so spent a lot of time learning from great gentlemen, cigar makers like we have here. They were my idols. I was inspired by them, wanted to be like them, and worked relentlessly going to Dominican, Nicaragua, Honduras, asking questions, soaking up knowledge. And after 7, 8 years, I think in 2001, 2003, something like that, that's when we changed the brand to Rocky Patel, got vertically integrated, and went for it.
All right, Guido, same question. How the f*** did you get in the cigar business?
Exactly, yeah. I had this friend of mine, and I was in, I have sold my jewelry business, and I was looking for a new business to do.
Hold it. Does somebody have a cigar for me? I want one of their cigars. Is there, who has a cigar? I mean, I can't believe you guys, you're supposed to be walking around with samples all the time, or you're too cheap. All right. Lito,
So I was looking for a new business for something else to do, and then a friend of my wife and I, one day we were having lunch and say, Lito, I would like to get into the cigar business, and I know you're looking for something to do for a new business. Will you? And I don't have the time to start this. Will you be willing to do it? And I say, what the f*** are you talking about? So he goes, yeah, Lito, but you smoke cigars. Yeah, sure, I smoke cigars, but making cigars, really, my friend, it doesn't make any sense. So he goes, think about it. I think it would be great. And I say, yeah, I'm going to think about it, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I started thinking about it. And it didn't make any sense. I told my wife. My wife told me, are you crazy? Any of my friends that I will make a comment about it will tell me the same exact thing. And but then, in my mind, analyzing this, it was not going to happen. But then, there was something that I didn't understand, and there was my heart was telling me, go ahead and do this. And and then, I started reading Cigar Aficionado, and, I read about Carlito and Ernesto, and say, how am I gonna compete with these guys? Like,
are your times, no speeches. Huh? The thing you notice is that the first two speakers are totally crazy. They should have been college professors or high school basketball coaches. So this is a normal person, I think. How do you get into the cigar business?
Well, that's, sometimes I ask myself that question many times during the early 80s, but I was always, part of a tobacco family, from Cuba. My father, he had a factory, he grew tobacco. My mother also, her whole family was in tobacco. And it just got, just something that happened unexpectedly. I always wanted to be a musician, and unfortunately I wasn't that good at it, otherwise I'd be doing that. And when my father passed away in 1980, that's when I really started to, really fall in love with this industry. So it was something that it wasn't planned, at least it wasn't in my plans. It just happened, and I'm so happy and so glad it did, because it's really made a difference in, my life, my family's life, and of course all those people that enjoy a good cigar. So
Ernesto started a little brand called Gloria Cubana, which eventually he sold, and it helped pay for his daughter's wedding, as I understand it.
Helped pay for a couple of things.
Now, Carlito, explain to me, did your father ever, truthfully, look me in the eye and tell me the goddamn truth for the first time, did he ever say to you, son, don't go into the tobacco business, it's declining and someday you're going to be out of business?
Many times. Many times. Marvin, many times. Like Ernesto, I experimented with music in my early years, and he's very humble. He was great at it. I wasn't worth a shit. But anyway, it was years, but honestly, I knew that was my purpose in life. I did it because the love from my family, the love from my grandparents, and being born in a little wooden house when, practically the day after I was born, that's where I lived with my grandparents and my parents. I was part of the cigar factory. I did it for the love of family, and I realized that's what I had to do. And then I learned that I continue to do it for the love of people, because honestly, I've never met so many big-hearted, giving, embracing people in the community of the cigar world.
Wow, that's the shortest speech I've ever heard Carlito give in his life, by about 2 hours.
I'm afraid to leave any doors open for you, Marvin.
George, what's your story? I mean, your father was in the business, your family was in the business. Did you always plan to go in the business? What was your story?
Well, I mean, I've been in the business my whole life. My family, I'm a fourth generation tobacco grower, and my father was never a tobacco manufacturer, a cigar manufacturer until he came to the U.S. And much like Carlito and Ernie, we were very humble beginnings in our case. In Little Havana, we had a small operation there, and my dad was very passionate about what he did. I grew up in that environment, and my father never pushed me to get into this business. I went to college, I graduated, I started interviewing, I couldn't get a job, and I said, you know what, the cigar business looks pretty good right now. and I got in, and that's how it started. And I got a chance to be with my dad, and like it goes for all of us here, the tobacco business gets in your blood. We have our kids here coming up, and it's something that, as Carlos said, you meet a lot of great people, and you really get to be a part of a very special industry where there's a lot of camaraderie and friendship. As you see here, we're all friends. We're all people that compete at the retail level, but at the end of the day, we're all friends.
So you now know a little bit more about each one of these guys. What I would add is that, sincerely, were it not for Gordon and David, the magazine would not enjoy the incredible success it's had over the past 30 years. I am a tough boss. Is that fair?
Yes?
Gordon, David, either one. How many times have I fired each one of you?
I keep losing track. You can't do that to me anymore, though. Well, I guess you could. But.
And you know what they always say to me when I fire them? They say, I'm not leaving. That's love. That's love. So, it's been 30 years. I know we're supposed to talk about the future, but let's talk about the past. Who wants to start first talking about what this roller coaster ride for the last 30 years has been all about?
I like to start because I remember, and I'll never forget these words, when Marvin walked into my little shop there. He came and he started talking about the magazine, and I'm listening to the man, and I'm thinking to myself, he can't be serious. I mean, this is a dying industry. It was. This was back in 1991, right? 1990, and I couldn't believe what he was saying, but at the same time, I see a man drive up in a big Lincoln white town car, I never forget it, with a chauffeur. So I said to myself, this guy must be, pretty important. But I'll never forget, just before he left, he said something that has always stuck with me. He says, Ernesto, I'm going to make you cigar makers, cigar manufacturers, we're going to make you all rock stars. And he left with that. And, I could go on and tell so many stories. But the first big smoke that we had at the Marriott Marquis, I started seeing people walking up. And, I never forget this couple that flew in from Mexico City. And the girl was pregnant. And she said, do you mind if we call our first child, if he's a boy, Ernesto? And if it's a girl, we'll call her Gloria. So, that stuck me. I said, man, this is, something's happening here. And then to put the ice on the cake, he calls me over, and I go into this big room at the Marriott, and Rudy Giuliani wanted to meet me. And we can mention, everybody here has that experience, Arnold, Stallone, Arnold came to my factory once in Little Havana. So, that was a kind of power, I guess you could say, that this whole thing with Cigar Aficionado did for this industry. These people wanted to meet us. It was incredible because, quite frankly, before that, I have to say, and I don't know if, we all were around, this industry was in a real bad state. So how people just open up to the magazine and to the whole concept or vision of that Marvin had was, to me, I always tell people, this is probably the biggest turnaround in history of an industry. And we owe that, to Marvin and the Cigar Aficionado, Dave, Gordon, and all the crew. I mean, you guys done a tremendous job.
No, I agree, and I'd like to add, I could go back to the 1970s where we were working in our factory in Tampa, 2 shifts. And still, I remember on Thursday afternoons where I would sit next to my father, late afternoon, and he's telling his secretary to call such and such account, even though their payment is not due, to see if they could make the payment so he could meet payroll. That was the 70s. The writing was on the wall. And the younger generation was moving on to other industries, becoming entrepreneurs, leaving the industry. And I met Marvin before the magazine was launched. And I remember Marvin saying to me, "Are you familiar with the wine industry?" And I said, "Not necessarily. I live in Dominican Republic, and there's not a wine culture here. People drink rum and beer." We're talking about 1991. That's changed completely. But at that time, he said, "Are you familiar with Wine Spectator?" He brought a magazine. He said, I'm gonna assist and transform the cigar industry the way I did the wine industry." And he mentioned California wines. And this I do remember. When I was a teenager, my brother-in-law, Wayne Suarez, was the general manager of the best Italian restaurant in Tampa. And I used to go there a lot after school. And of course, he didn't ask me for ID. And I used to drink carafe wines because it was the cheapest. It was like $3.50 for a carafe and so forth. And then I asked one time, what wines are there, California wines? Look what Marvin has done for California, for Napa, and the whole world. He's also done that for the cigar industry, has transformed it, and has brought, what I see the miracle of this, the most important thing is brought so many, I've met so many people. It's not just the immediate family that I knew and the neighbors. I've met so many people around the world who have become an extension of my family. So many wonderful people, which is the most valuable possession that I have today. I owe that all to Marvin Shanken, his team, and Cigar Aficionado.
All right, let's stop this train. So, Ernesto brought up the Big Smoke, which everybody takes for granted, but let me take you back 30 years. When I had the idea for a cigar event to bring consumers together, there had never been one. I had been a passionate cigar smoker, and forgive me for the women that are in the room, but I used to get beat up all the time verbally by women telling me that cigar smoke stinks, they can't stand it, don't smoke around them, leave the room, this, that, and the other thing. So I'm trying to come up with a name for this event, and I said I got the perfect name, the Big Smoke, which was supposed to be a f*** you. So in this, the first event, and I didn't know if anybody would come. I didn't know if the manufacturers had enough cigars to serve cigars. We ended up having 2 sessions, 3,000 people the first year. It exploded. At one point, we were doing 10 Big Smokes all over the country at the same time. Now we just do the one major one in Vegas where we get 3,000 to 4,000, basically all readers of the magazine. And then we started the seminars, and it's taken a life unto itself. And what it's all about is what we're doing right now. And by the way, I'm glad that women have come into the market. Not enough, but we certainly appreciate the fact that they enjoy smoking cigars and they don't have a negative view towards it, although there are still plenty that do, and we always have the government looking over our shoulder. Guido, in your travels, what are you seeing in the cigar market today?
Well, what I see is, we having, the best years for cigars, the golden years. the level of quality that's in the marketplace from all manufacturers, from every country that manufactures cigars, it's just incredible. A very, very high level of quality. And for ourselves as cigar makers, the quality of the materials that are being grown in different countries, it keeps getting better. Beautiful, excellent materials. And for us as blenders, it's just like paradise to be able to have all these great materials, great tobaccos to blend cigars. And so this is a blessing for us as manufacturers, as it should be for consumers or cigar fans to enjoy the very high levels of quality that's today in the market.
Very good. Rocky, you know, one of the things that amazed me early on when you were getting started was, and I don't know, maybe the others do it too, I don't know, but I know that you used to take groups of retailers down to see the farms, to see the factories. I mean, large groups, which had to cost you a lot of money. What made you decide on making that investment, and how has it paid off for you?
Yeah, so when we started taking groups down in the early, I think, 2000 era, I think that it was important to showcase the artisan quality and how much labor and work goes into making a great quality cigar. I think most consumers didn't realize that 300 different hands touch the tobacco. By the time you plant a seedling in the ground, time you get a cigar in a box takes 4 to 5 years, how labor intensive it is, how passionate people are. And when people came down there and they saw that these factories are meticulous, they're clean, the amount of love and passion that goes into making a great quality cigar, they had a great appreciation, and the word spread. They would come back at the local stores. They would tell all the other people hanging out that, you know, this is unbelievable. They don't mind paying $10, $12 for a cigar. You know, it's unbelievable how much work goes into it, and it just kind of snowballed. And I mean, we were taking almost 1,200 people a year down, and along with the magazine, when you have that kind of intensity, and then, you know, you can promote the entire culture, I think it helped promote the entire business and certainly helped promote our brand.
George, wait a second, my phone's ringing. I'm not going to answer it, but hard to hear, but this is the University of Miami fight song. It's they want to reconfirm my dinner reservation, but I'm not going to do that right now. because they don't know that George is about to speak, so the restaurant's going to have to wait. George, your father was the foundation of what is Padron today. What is it that you're able to do that your father couldn't do? And what is it your father did that you'll never be able to do?
Well, I can tell you what I'll never be able to do that he did, and that is he was born on a farm, so he knew the farming side of our business inside and out. You know, you can go to school, you can get educated in formal educations, but if you're not a part of a farming program and you understand what's going on there, it doesn't really make a difference how much you know in school. So while I know enough, I know that I'll never know as much as he knew, that he can walk onto a field and know exactly what was wrong, what needed to be done, when it needed to be done. And those are the types of things that only for people like us that are at this level and are seeing this day to day can understand. You know, as far as the things that, what was the other part of the question?
What is it that you do that he didn't do or couldn't do?
Well, okay, so...
And Carlos, be prepared.
So my father and I were very much the same and different also at the same time. We both had the same, I learned from him, so the way that I think is a lot the way he was thinking all the time. And I was fortunate enough to spend 25 years by his side where I started to learn a lot more about this business. You know, like I said before, I had a formal education, but you know, once you get into the nitty-gritty of making cigars and dealing with the people, that's when you start to realize how much more you still have to learn. As Rocky said, it's very labor intensive. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in the process of making a great cigar. And that's something that most people will never understand when they'll ask us. They've asked me a million times, and I'm sure they've asked everybody else, what is the secret? I'm like, the secret is that you have to pay attention to detail from beginning to end. And that means that you have to have great people that know what they're doing, that are committed to the same mission that you have as a company. So, from my standpoint, I had a little bit of different approach in how I approached the market. I was much more involved at the retail level, selling, developing new brands, new lines. So all of these, the anniversary series, the 26 series, the Family Reserve, all of these cigars came while I was a part of the process, and I pushed my father to make these and to launch them. And that's something that I honestly don't know if I wouldn't have been around, if these would have ever come to fruition, because my dad was very, very conservative and always liked to stay, true to the beginning, to the humble roots that he had. So,
Carlito, your dad was a man of few words. If he were alive today and he were in a rocking chair on the porch, what would he say about what's happened to Fuente in the last 30 years?
Wow, Marvin, that's very, very difficult to answer. But, you mentioned a rocking chair, but I think the biggest power of my father, which I have not proven yet, and it depends on the next generation, is that even though he's been gone for 6 years, he still has a tremendous impact in every decision, every thought, every move I make inside the cigar factory. He's with me all the time. And there's huge differences between my father and I. One thing, he had a gift. My father could go weeks sleeping 2 hours a day, and the rest of the time, 22 hours, he was working. An incredible man, very simple, very humble, as you said, a man of few words. But he was such a power and such a force in my life and my family's life that he's always going to be around us. And I'm hoping and doing my best to instill those values into his grandchildren as well.
Ernesto, I know how shy you are, but having your own brand, having your family working by your side, how do you see the future for the handmade cigar business?
Well, I shouldn't say how I see the future. I should say how my kids see the future. And the reason I'm saying that is because when I decided to, go back into the cigar business in 2009, originally my idea was to, make private labels, and, Rocky spoke to me, Alan Rubin. But, my kids had, I would say, very good paying jobs. My daughter was a lawyer. She still is. My son was in finance. And when they heard that I was going to open up another factory, they came to me and they said, Dad, we want to be a part of that. And the first thing I said to them, you guys are making good money. Why would you want to do that? And basically their response was, because, we have faith in what you're going to do, and we want to make this another family company. So, after that, what are you going to say? You have to give 100% of every day, of every moment, to make this business a success. And I have to say, if they hadn't come into the business, maybe I wouldn't be here, sitting here today like I am, speaking to you folks. So they see the future, and I see the future as very bright. I think this business is going to keep on growing. Like Lito mentioned, the quality that's going into every cigar we make, it's been and I've been around now for 50-some years, and I've never seen so much quality, so much passion as I see now in this industry. So there's still a lot to be done. Let's put it that way.
All right. So David, it appears that the time is almost up, and you didn't say a fucking word. Nor did you ask, or you get to ask any questions that you have like 9 pages here. Was there one question that you were dying to ask, or have I totally destroyed your whole afternoon?
You've made this seminar incredibly memorable. This is perfect. You tore up the script, and I love it. And if I looked shocked when he walked up on stage, that's because I had no earthly idea he was coming here. If I could ask a question, and we do have about 10 more minutes, I know we want to open up the floor to questions from the audience, but since you're here, I would love to ask you, you could share with the room, when you created Cigar Aficionado in 1992, did you ever think it would be a magazine that would endure for more than 30 years?
Good. He's doing a turnaround. The simple truth is, I didn't really think about it. When you are passionate about, I didn't even care if I made money or not. I already had a business, a publishing business, and Wine Spectator was very successful. When I first had the idea, I expected to lose money for many years to come. I didn't really care. It was about spreading the passion and sharing the passion with others. The more people told me, it actually started out, the idea was a newsletter. And the more people told me it was a dumb idea and nobody was going to read it, there was never been a cigar magazine, the more determined I was to prove everybody wrong. And it went from being a newsletter to a magazine, to a glossy magazine, to a lifestyle magazine. And if you read the editor's letter in the very first issue of what the dream was, that editor's letter is exactly what Cigar Aficionado became. It hasn't deviated 1% from the fantasy that I wrote about 30 years ago. Did I need it? No. Did I expect it? No. Am I enormously proud of it? Absolutely. I never tell anybody, but if you read the magazine, it's not Dear Editor, it's Dear Marvin. And no other magazine does that, but from day one, this was a personal trip that I was taking, and I'm so very proud of the 30 years that it's been around, and I want to repeat that Gordon and David are just as worthy of the praise as I am. They did the fucking work. And Gordon, anything you want to add?
Marvin, I think that you pointed out that quick evolution from newsletter to a lifestyle magazine. I think that ended up being the real genius of Cigar Aficionado, that you realized that cigar smoking isn't just about smoking a cigar. It's about the life you have around it, the friends you make through it. That's where it became something more than just a magazine about cigars. It became a magazine about the life we all live and that we want to live, and that's what's made it a success, I think.
All right, so we're almost out of time. You had said you're going to take a question. We're going to take 1 or 2 questions because I don't want to get in trouble for making this session go too long. Anyone have any questions? Raise your hand. And
Yeah, we have guys with microphones. Tom and Garrett have the mics. Raise your hand, and people will come to you and ask your questions.
if you could, he's not as tough as I am. Stand up, say your name, where you're from, and to whom the question's directed.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Steinmetz. I'm from Long Island, New York, and my question is for the entire panel. I am very pleased to be standing in front of you guys. As you described, you are rock stars, and it's our pleasure to be here in front of your presence. My question to you guys is, you all have your own brand of cigar and your own favorite one, but my question is, do you try each other's brands? And if you do you have a favorite one?
What a great, you know, that's I don't know where you live in Long Island, but do you play golf? You want to come out to the Hamptons to play golf with me this summer? Drop me a note or drop David a note. Give me your name and number, and you're going to come out and play with me. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go from George down to Rocky. You have to say your favorite cigar, and it can't be your own. Other than your own, what's your favorite cigar? I love that question. All right, George, you're first.
Well, I have a tremendous amount of respect for everybody at this table. Normally, I only smoke my own cigars, but I have smoked cigars of every single manufacturer on this table, and I can tell you, as Lito said, the quality of the cigars that we're making today are
Stop the
better than
PR
ever.
bullshit. What's the name of the fucking cigar?
Holy shit. I guess it has to be one of Carlitos, the Don Carlos. Of your cigars, that's the one that I like.
What ass kissing? All right, Carlito, you're up.
George already answered for me. No, seriously, these are all my dear friends. I smoked all their cigars. We're very close, and they all make great cigars. There's not one that I have in favor of another, but there's one cigar that I have smoked many of that is very special to my heart for very emotional, deep meanings, and that is the cigar that Jorge Padron made in honor of my father. That cigar has a very special place in my heart, which hopefully, with time, others will be able to enjoy it also.
What a tap dance. Ernesto.
Oh, Marvin, couldn't you just make this simple? But I mean,
it is simple. You just have to mention one name.
Listen, my routine every night, I smoke 3 cigars. I smoke, one of mine. I smoke a blend I may be working on, and I smoke a competitor's cigars. And I would have to say that, it all depends on the moment, the time of day. So if I told you one cigar or the other,
Ernesto, last night, I'll make it easy on you. Last night, what was the brand you smoked as the other cigar?
Last night, let me see if I can remember.
Or the night before?
Or the night before, that's a good question.
I know it's a good question. We need a good answer.
Marvin, you're getting me into a lot of trouble, you know that? But anyway, look, if I had, like I said, to be frank, I can say one is my favorite. I smoke Padrones, I smoke, Fuentes, I smoke Litos, but, Rockies, I smoke,
You know what? I'm going to give you the hook because you have no balls.
I don't. I don't.
Lito, show these boys how a man speaks. What's your favorite brand other than your own?
Well, I gotta say two. One is Inch Robusto from Ernesto, and the other one is Don Carlos Robusto also, which is those are my 2 favorites.
All right, good for you. You're setting a good example. And Rocky,
I can make this really easy. I actually get tired of smoking my own cigars, so I'm constantly smoking other cigars, and I move around. I used to smoke a lot of Litos, double Ligeros, but I would say if I had to pick an absolute favorite, it'd be the Fuente Anejo Shark. And of course, I love everybody's cigars on here. I smoke them.
they just did something.
Okay, Marvin, excuse me. Which is your favorite cigar?
Non-Cuban.
The cigar that's in my hand at the moment that I'm smoking it. It's funny. People would always ask, what's your favorite wine or what's your favorite cigar? And I will never give them an answer because I can't. As a journalist, I don't want to show my hand. David, do you have a favorite cigar that you want us?
I mean, I smoke them all. I smoke cigars not every day, but most days.
You don't have 15 minutes to
I'm
answer.
sorry. Man, it's a really hard thing to say. This is, I feel eyes looking at me.
That's why I'm going to play golf with this guy. Either speak up or you're done. Which is it?
There's a cigar that I treat myself with. There aren't that many of them. Don Carlos Lancero is really like a special smoke. They're not very. There's not very many of them, so that's a cigar I treat myself with.
Gordon?
Marvin, my favorite cigar was given to me by Carlito's father, and it was a Don Carlos number 3. For a number of years, he actually sent me boxes of them because he knew it was my favorite cigar.
All right. So I promised a second question, but I was going to say we don't have time for it, but I see this guy in a red shirt. He's sort of like, he's not going like this. He's sort of going like this. Bring the microphone to this guy with the hat with the red shirt. He sort of like is very cool the way he's standing with his hand on his chin. And stand up, your name, and where you're from.
My name's Yost. I'm from Nova Scotia, Canada. First, I've got to say I've attended these things for 8 years, and this is probably going to be one of the most enjoyable panels I've ever had. Why you haven't had Marvin moderate these things more, I have no idea.
The question, please.
Yes, now that the ass-kissing is over. I'm very much looking forward to trying the whiskeys here, but a lot of people I know also drink wine with their cigars. So when are we going to have a wine spectator and wine spectator and cigar fest pairing like we do with the whiskey and cigar one this weekend?
Probably, since you asked the question, maybe we'll have one in November in Las Vegas. Is this something that others of you would like?
Yeah.
I'd invite you to play golf, but I ain't going to Nova Scotia. I don't know if you're coming. Anyway, all right, drop David a note. So I think, what time is it?
I think it's time. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to say goodbye. I'm leaving. I love being here. I love seeing all of you. I want you to have a great afternoon seminar. I want you to even have a better time tonight. The one thing I can tell you is that from the first day of the first Big Smoke, I used to walk around and see all the smiles on everybody's faces. And that's what all made it so worthwhile. And I'm here out of my great respect for these 5 cigar makers and the others that are here this afternoon or will be here tonight. We're all part of a great industry, in my mind, the greatest industry there is on earth. Thank you. It was great seeing all of you.
Thank you.